Hello, everybody. I'm Mod Dane, and welcome to the Discord events, the Struts Discord events highlights channel. What you're about to see was recorded live on January 13th, 2024. And you yourself can participate in these events. A link is in the description for the Discord server. And this was so much fun, so please join us and for the next event. Anyway, I hope you enjoy this sort of interview slash Q&A. We talk about everything from Luke's solo record to a little bit about Taylor Hawkins to his fragrances that he wears, all sorts of stuff. So hope you enjoy it, and let's get to the first question right now. There we go. Much better right now.
Okay.
There
Well,
you go.
hello there, Luke. How are you, sir?
I'm very good. I'm very good. That's one question, Lizzie. Remember.
Well, my question was on the Google form. I know you have your heroes, Luke, that you look up to. And I know you see on my Instagram and, my other posts about you. How does it feel to hear somebody like me thank you for being a hero and somebody that I myself look up to?
I think it's wonderful. I think it's wonderful. As long as I think it's very important that I guess in some respects it kind of applies a bit of pressure to me. In a good way. In a good way. It helps me to be, let's say, a better person, to make better decisions, because whether I like it or not, people do tend to kind of look up to me to an extent, and that's a responsibility. So it helps me, it inspires me to be a better person. I hope so, anyway.
Well, I'm always proud of you, Luke, and I think you're one amazing person and never stop shining.
Oh, thank you so much, Lizzie. Always a pleasure.
Always. Thank you, Dane.
Thank you, Lizzie. Oh, let's see here. Who else should we get up here? Annie has a good question. Let's get Annie up here.
Oh, am I unmuted now?
There you are. Yep. We got you now.
Annie, I have a question for you, actually.
For me?
Yeah, yeah. Annie, are you okay? Okay, are you okay, Annie? Annie, are you okay?
I'm not okay. I've been struck by a smooth criminal.
Guarantee you that's the first time she's ever heard that one.
I know.
Let's do that. I'm gonna ask Annie's question. Unfortunately, she's having some difficulties here. Do you have secret skills outside of performing that you're proud of?
Ooh, my secret skills. My secret skills. I make a very, very good cup of tea. If one is lucky enough to be invited round to my abode, I will rustle up very good cups of tea. The best part is I can do it without sweeteners. I can get the balance just right. But if you're partial to a couple of spoonfuls of sugar, I can also do that. I once was a two sugar man in my tea, but I feel like I can get the right ratio between, and I think the secret is oat milk in a cup of tea, not your normal cow farm milk, you see. So I think a good cup of tea would have to be one of my secret skills.
How about what you do to help your voice recover after a long tour?
Well, honestly, here's the thing, right? And this is speaking just plain and simple. When it comes to people's voices, most of it is so genetic. I know a lot of great singers who maybe technically might be better than me, maybe have better technique, whatever, but their genetics can sort of like lead them to have voices that get tired quite easily. And for what it's worth, if all that is expected of me is to jump up on stage at like 9 p.m. or 8:30 at night and do like a 90-minute set plus, I can do that for like 5-6 days in a row. What kills me, what kills my voice, and again, this is just me, but if I get asked to do early morning acoustic performances or things like this, that the same day as a show, that will really like hurt my voice. I just don't know whether it's because it's too early, and when you're on tour, you get very little sleep. I mean, you're coming off stage at about 11:30 or 12, and then I'm in bed by about 3 p.m. And sometimes you're expected to sing at like 11 o'clock the next day or 12 midday, and that's just too much. If I end up doing that, then I'm in big trouble. And I had a couple of issues like that on the last tour that we did last year for promoting the album. But it's a really difficult situation because it's, you have allegiances to stations that are playing your songs, and you are, to be quite frank, some of the stations, I'll always come back and say, look, I'll go in, I can do an interview, I'll do like a meet and greet, whatever it is, just please don't make me sing. And then some of them are just like, well, if you're not going to sing, then we don't want you in. So I then get put into a position where I have to sort of just suck it up and do it and just hope for the best. But I've been doing this for 14 years now in the Struts, and I've only cancelled one show, so it's not bad in England.
Yeah, no, that's pretty good. What was the show that you canceled?
It was before we came over to the States, and we were meant to be doing a show somewhere in Europe, and I had just got really, really sick, and I couldn't sing. I was meant to fly and meet everyone somewhere in Europe. I think it was a festival in Spain when the very first version of Everybody Wants came out in the UK. And yeah, I was just super, super ill. So that was it.
Makes sense.
I think it was some question about Weird Al, which I already asked him at this show in DC, but I'll ask another one if that's okay.
Sure.
So while we know everyone means well with the comparisons, my question is, does it ever become tiresome having to express appreciation for the Mick Jagger and Freddie Mercury comparisons? Do you ever have to resist responding with something to the effect of, listen, yeah, they're legends, they're my heroes, but I'm my own person in my own right, just like they were in their time?
I mean, good question. Good question. Let us snob. I think the truth about it is this: it's just part of the gig, and for whatever reason, the Struts have struggled to sort of really break into the wider global market, like some other bands like Maneskin and Greta Van Fleet, who are doing like arenas. And you'll notice with them that they get very little comparisons because they become a comparison themselves due to the sort of like basically how sort of large and popular they've become. So a comparison is only used really as like a tool to sort of to spread the word, and I think it's sort of important to keep that in mind. So it's just human nature, isn't it? It's like if someone's at a bar and you get talking and someone's like, oh, what's that band on your shirt, and they've never heard of this group before, you would say, oh yeah, it's a bit like this and a bit like that, and the singer is a bit like this person and that person. So on one hand, it's used as a very useful tool to sort of get people engaged, which I can appreciate it. I just think give it time, give it time, and people hopefully one day will be saying, as sort of younger bands come up and start doing newer music, that, you know, by that point there might be some people saying like, oh, you know, there sounds a bit like Luke Spiller from the Struts, you know. I don't know, but I mean, it used to sort of annoy me a lot, and to be honest, it was one of the main reasons why I really felt like I had to go through an image change, because I just couldn't get away from the constant Freddie Mercury comparisons, especially when I had like black hair, which I enjoyed having black hair. I never intended to have black hair at the very beginning. It was actually pressed upon me from one of the very early record labels that we had, and I never had a chance to really grow it out. So I had to stick with the black hair for ages and ages. And to be honest, I rocked it out and it looked good. But I've noticed a huge dramatic drop in at least the Freddie comparisons. But now it's quite funny. Now people call me like Tom Petty and Rod Stewart, so you can't get away.
This is a question from Troy_925. Here you are. What is your question, Troy?
Sorry.
That's okay.
What is your favorite song to perform live?
Good one. Good one.
Ooh. I would have to say, so firstly, the last tour that we just did on the West Coast was probably one of the funnest set lists that we've ever had. Mainly because we pretty much had every single focus song / single off every album that we've done, and we also had like 4 tracks from the new album Pretty Vicious. So there were a lot of real fun moments. Too Good at Raising Hell is a really fun song to sing live. It's demanding, but it's just so cheeky and fun. So I'd have to say Too Good at Raising Hell or Pretty Vicious, just because it's so different and it comes sort of 3/4 of the way through the set, and I can just feel the mood change completely. And I love using like the different types of my voice. You know, I get tired of like constantly having to scream all the time. You know, I kind of sometimes wish that I'd chosen these songs in slightly lower keys when recording them, but yeah, Pretty Vicious and Too Good at Raising Hell are real moments for me.
Let's go to Simon. Hello, Simon. How are you doing? What is your question for Luke Spiller?
Oh, I hardly use Discord, so I'm just making sure that everyone can hear me.
We can.
Oh, perfect, thank you. Well, I've seen that, being called one of the best bands that Dave Grohl's ever had open for them. How does it feel to sort of, have someone like that say that about your band? And also, who would you have open for you?
So like a dream situation, opening for
Definitely.
you? Okay.
Well, thank you very much, mate. It's nice to hear a fellow Brit. Well, firstly, yeah, I mean, it was such a fascinating thing to have Dave Grohl say that. And of course, to be completely transparent, I think we're all friends here, and I think you can all appreciate and deserve to know, the kind of bitter truth. The really funny thing is that Dave Grohl publicly said that on a UK-based radio station, and to which the interviewer replied and said, "Oh yeah, I love that band. We play them all the time," which was complete bullshit. They've never played our band, and they haven't played our band since, which I thought was so funny. But good for Dave for doing that. He's always had our backs and has always believed in this group, and he's always done his absolute best to try and set us up in the best light possible, and continues to do so. And it's really great. I think in terms of who I'd love to see open up for us, or perhaps even just do shows with, I'm really enjoying The Last Dinner Party in the UK. I think that band is really special, and I'm really loving Barnes Courtney's latest song as well. I think that's a really good track. Um, and of course, as well, we also had Max Satin out on throughout the whole tour last year, and I just love that band. I love the chaps themselves, and I just wish we could have kept touring with them forever.
Yeah. Yeah, we did like a music night kind of thing here, and we were playing Max Saturn, and people absolutely love them. They're so great. They're doing I don't know, you probably know this, but they're doing a headline tour in February, and I can't wait to see that. Are you gonna go see the Foo Fighters on their tour this year?
It really depends. If it works out, then I'd love to. But I'm so busy. I got so many things lined up for this year, which
Mm,
I'm really excited about. So I'm doing all of the work before hitting the road.
yeah. When you're off the road, do you go to many concerts, or do you just or typically just stay in?
I will. It really depends who it is. I mean, I've really got to love them. Um, I'm not really one to sort of just rock up to a random show or whatnot.
Mm.
Just because I don't like doing things like waiting in queues, or paying for drinks. I'd rather play and then get treated like royalty, so I can sort of enjoy.
Uh, let's get let's get Yi in here. How are you, Yi?
Hello,
Hello.
I'm doing good.
It's fantastic. What's your question for Luke Spiller?
So, like, this is a question me and Aaron have been wondering for a while. What was your inspiration for the album Young and Dangerous? 'Cause it's a pretty wild one.
Hmm.
Do you mean like on the whole or just the title?
No, just the whole album.
Oh, okay. Good question. Gosh. Well, firstly, that album was very challenging to make. I mean, the second record is always very difficult, and I'll tell you why it's difficult. It's because you're so busy promoting the first record, especially if it's um, getting a lot of notoriety that we did. We were lucky enough to have some really great big singles on that album. So we were constantly on the road. And what happened was we were recording in the studio or at least writing demos in all of our spare time, in our free time. So we really didn't actually have any quote free time during that album process. And I think there were, in terms of like the inspiration, I wanted it to be like a part two to Everybody Wants, where it had a bit more depth to it and a bit more slight maturity in places. But I mean, it's got some really good deep moments. Like Ashes is sort of like a very somber kind of song, with a crazy arrangement, and then Fire Part One is like a really beautiful love story. Somebody New is like a really great heartbreak song.
Hmm.
But then it's also got these really great big moments like Prima Donna Like Me and Body Talks, where we were just really trying to establish ourselves as like a really fun, loving, life-loving rock and roll band.
Don't
So that
forget
was
Tatler Magazine.
Oh, and Tatler, yeah. So you're right, actually. I didn't really think about the pure scope of that album, but it has a lot of amazing variety. And I just think the inspiration to answer the question was just show everybody what we could do and how much ground that we could cover within the realm what is known as rock music.
This one comes from Aowen. I'm watching a new movie every week this year. What's a movie you would recommend I watch?
Ooh, okay. Well, I'm a big fan of really great music biopics.
Hmm.
Um, so some of the most recent ones that I watched, which really blew me away. There's one about Serge Gainsbourg, which is called, what's it called? A Glorious Life, I believe. But that one was a really interesting film to watch. I loved it. I loved that film. And there's also an incredible movie about Edith Piaf, the French singer, which is called Vivienne and Rose, I believe. That one is really, really beautiful, really tragic, and very insightful. And the most recent one I saw, if anyone hasn't seen it, is Bradley Cooper in Maestro. That was unbelievable. I loved that film. So I would say those three.
Nice. If there was a movie about the Struts, who would you get to play yourself?
Ooh, I really, really don't know. I have no idea. No idea. Because obviously it would have to be someone at least 20 years younger than me at
Sure,
the
yeah.
time. So there's probably going to be a new talent in 20 years' time. I don't know. The hottest talent out there. The hottest, youngest talent out there.
Who has been waiting a long time? Let's see. Sexy Dragon has been waiting a long time. Let's get them in here. How are you doing today, Sexy Dragon?
Tired. Can everybody hear me?
We can. What's your question for Luke?
I'm just curious, if you could choose any song to get a parody by Weird Al Yankovic, which one would you choose and why?
Gosh. It depends. It'd have to be the best pun, wouldn't it? I remember for a long, long time, when the band first started out, our sort of road manager / guitar technician / everything would print out the set list with the word penis in every single song. One of the best ones that I read, which sticks in my mind, is instead of "put your money on me," it was "put your penis in me," which I always thought was quite hilarious. And then another one was, of course, "Dirty Sexy Penis." So maybe I think "Dirty Sexy Penis" would be pretty good, or "Put your penis in me." I'm not sure. Not to get too X-rated, but
Yeah.
I think that Weird Al would probably kill one of those titles, you know?
Mm-hmm.
My vote is for "Could Have Been Me." But
Could've
thank you for answering.
I feel like could have been me. That could be something. Like could have been. I don't know.
Could have been she, could have been he.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So, yeah. There's potential. There's potential. Let's get Malmatosh in here. Wonder they have a good question. Here we are. We can. What's your question?
All right, my question is not very deep, but I was at
That's okay.
the kickoff show for the most recent leg of the tour, and when Luke walked past us to go get ready for the meet and greet portion, he smelled amazing. And so, Luke, I want to know, what fragrance do you wear?
Oh, that might be giving away my secrets, you know.
Ooh.
But I am partial to I sort of like have a cocktail. So I like to mix two different fragrances. So the first one is Tom Ford Leather Ombre, which was a gift. And there's another one by Cartier, which I also sort of just sprinkle a little bit on top of that. So with those two, it's the unstoppable force of the Luke Musk.
Well, it is amazing. So thank you for sharing most of your secrets.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. This one comes from Milo_antagonist. When did you learn to play the piano and who taught you?
Well, that's a good question. The truth is, I've I think I've had about one piano lesson in my life, and to be honest, I can't really play that well. I sort of I use it as a way to write songs. I know enough chords, and I know about keys, and I know about sevenths, and I know enough to sort of sit down and be like, okay, I'm going to write a rough idea. But to be honest, when it comes to playing the piano like on the records, apart from a few, I've only played piano on a few of the songs. Like I played piano on Somebody New, and to be honest, actually, the piano part that I composed for Tatler magazine was actually really, really cool. So I'm quite proud of that. But for the most part, I'll just use it to write. And I kind of started quite late. I didn't really sort of sit down at a piano until I was about 17 or 18 years old, where my parents had moved into this house and there was a beautiful piano in it. And I used to sort of like stumble in after sort of hitting a nightclub, and I get in there at like 2 a.m. and I just sort of sit and I'd sort of just play things, and I didn't even know what I was doing at the time. And to be honest, I still don't. And I think that's where the magic is. I think sometimes if you know too much, it takes away the instinct of doing things. And musically, I have a tendency to do things that are a little bit elaborate and sometimes shouldn't work, but they sound good to me. And I would sort of show people chord progressions and things that I'm doing on the piano, and everyone's like, "What? Like that's a bit weird." But I'm like, "Yeah, but it sounds cool, right?" And they're like, "Well, yeah, I guess."
So this one's from Rio L96. When did you first discover the power of your voice and vocal range? It is quite incredible. Did your parents encourage your desire to be the rock star that you have become?
Good question. I think I was just basically self-taught when I started singing in my first school band, and we would play like AC/DC. We play a lot of AC/DC, and those songs are quite high. And I remember just sort of going through the trial and error, so to speak, of going to a gig and having to sort of sing Highway to Hell or Thunderstruck or TNT. And those songs are a good way to sort of like teach yourself how to get up there, because if you look and listen to Bon Scott, for instance, the first singer of AC/DC, he's not really straining, and when he's performing, it's like he can hit those notes with sheer confidence. So I think I found out that singing is like 90% confidence and 10% technique, and I was just lucky enough to sort of have the experience by the time I got to the Struts, where I had done lots and lots and lots of performances and sang lots and lots of songs, which paid a lot of dividends in the end. And and with my parents, I think they were patient. They were patient to the point where I think they always recognized that I could do something with my voice and performing. And as soon as sort of things started to happen in the Struts world, it was like, I think it was a bit of a sigh of relief. And it's just been nothing but pure encouragement since then. I mean, my dad's probably one of my biggest fans,
Would you be willing to act in the movie industry? And if so, what genre?
I'd love to do that. I think it would just have to be the right thing, wouldn't it? I'd love to do some sort of like really edgy indie films, or of course biopics, music biopics. I don't know. I've thought about it a lot. You know, if they end up doing an Aerosmith one, I think I could do a mean Steve Tyler. I think that'd be quite good.
Oh
I
yeah,
just
that
have to.
would. That would.
I'd have to brush up on my Boston accent, you know. But I think that could be quite
Yeah.
Bond villain or something like that. You know, like a
Oh yeah,
real
yeah.
horrible person. That could be fun.
Yeah, that would. What was the first Michael Jackson song that you became obsessed with?
Well, I remember one of the first videos I saw was Smooth Criminal, and that was sort of like a wow moment. But it wasn't until I convinced my mum to buy me Off the Wall, which is where I was just obsessed with the whole entire album. And I still love that album now. I think it's such a masterstroke of amazing arrangements and musical accomplishment. And of course, his voice is absolutely brilliant. And I love the title track, Off the Wall. I thought that was great. And I really loved, what else is on that album? Burn This Disco Out. I think Off the Wall was the first proper song where I was like, oh yeah, this is just so good.
This next question comes from Jess Uwu. How does it feel to have a loyal but small community of fans? And how do you plan to make yourself known even more?
Well, I mean, firstly, I love the fact that the Struts is kind of, I'd say, like a little bit of a cult band, which I think there's a romantic element to that, you know? Of course, I'd love to be playing stadiums, and sometimes I do get incredibly frustrated where I am in my career. But then I get very quickly reminded of how far I've come, and the fact that, you know, there is this like small, incredibly loyal fan base that we have, which I'm super lucky to have. But in terms of like expanding, I have a few ideas. Of course, you know, there's going to be new Struts music coming out at the beginning of this year, and of course we're going to continue to make more albums and strive for bigger and better things, and I'm also branching out on my own as well with like a solo record this year as well, which, you know, may or may not sort of be able to reach places that Struts music might have struggled in the past, because it's a little different. It's not really a rock album per se.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, who knows?
Are you going to go on a tour for that solo album?
I am, yeah, hopefully. I mean, of course, a huge majority of this year is going to be promoting Pretty Vicious and really sort of making the most of that. We've also got like some big things lined up for the summer. So what I'd really like to do is do like a solo tour towards the end of the year, like in November or December, once all of my Struts obligations have been fulfilled.
This question comes from Kate the Great. It might be cheesy, but what are some tips for someone wanting to start a band / perform in one? Where does one start?
Where do you start? Gosh, I'd say, firstly, if you're going to join a band, I'd make sure that you're all musically aligned and you know what you want to do. Probably the best thing in my experience, which is kind of how the Struts was born, which is where I kind of had a very, very clear vision of what I wanted to do, and that was to revive a certain sound and look and era of rock music. And then from that, I was lucky enough to sort of find like-minded people or just purely convince them to get on board with it. So I would say knowing exactly what you want to do is like a very important thing, because you don't want to spend years of trying to figure out what it is that you're trying to accomplish and what your message is. So knowing what you want to say and how you want to look and feel is probably the most important thing.
Were you ever scared, speaking of like starting a band and stuff, were you ever scared of performing on stage?
Not really, no. I mean, you got to understand, like my first ever live performance was probably when I was about 8 or 9 years old. And I think I was nervous then. But like after that, I kind of had the bug, and I sort of knew that I had some sort of ability, so to speak, to sort of like grab people's attention. So I was confident in my ability. And then I think the key to not getting nervous is just being well rehearsed. If I was to ever get nervous or whatever, it would be because I'm under rehearsed and I haven't put the work in.
Are there times that you get nervous before coming out on stage?
The most recent time I was actually nervous was at the Taylor Hawkins show. That's the only.
That's understandable.
Yeah, I was kind of shitting a brick.
I can imagine, yeah.
I had to wait there all day in the stadium, and I wasn't on until about 8:30 at night. Of course, the concert began with Liam fucking Gallagher at like 3 p.m. So I was like, what the hell? And then it really didn't hit me until the concert began. And I was only nervous because, don't get me wrong, I didn't have like, quote, imposter syndrome or anything like that. Like I really don't struggle with any of that, because I believe in my abilities, and I believe that, I work hard, and I was gracious. Well, I was lucky enough to sort of be invited to that show, and I knew that my relationship with Taylor was very much completely genuine. So I wanted to sort of be there to sort of like pay my respects. The only thing I was nervous about was was the obvious. It was like 7,000 people, and it was obviously being streamed across the world.
Yeah.
And it was just like I was about to perform with Queen and the Foo Fighters simultaneously, and I just knew that we couldn't fuck it up. I was like, Luke, you cannot fuck this up. And I drank about half a bottle of tequila before going on stage, because I couldn't mellow out. Like I just couldn't. So I pretty much jumped up on stage pretty lubricated at that time, but it was such a thrill, and it was such a huge thing. So it was sick.
Yeah. Exquisite Biscuits has a question about the Taylor Hawkins tribute. So let's get him in here.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can.
Luke, I just want to say I went to the Taylor Hawkins tribute, and it was my first time seeing you as a performer. I saw you in Manchester after that with the Struts, and that was amazing too. What I wanted to ask is if you could just share some of your experiences of the day, apart from what you've already done, just to maybe speak about Taylor for a little bit as well. You mentioned the friendship you had with him and how genuine it was, and also about the after party. So I understand there was one, and it was quite huge. Did you go? Was it, have you got any stories from it, anything like that? And thank you for the question.
Yeah, no problem.
No, thank you. Yeah, okay, so yeah, I guess, firstly, just to talk about, Taylor, for instance, like we we completely hit it off straight away because we had such a passion for Queen and all things like Bowie and we sort of really formed a relationship, just constantly geeking out over our favorite groups. And I think in hindsight, when I look at it, like drummers and singers seem to have this very unique relationship. And if you look at most bands, the drummers and singers tend to be the coolest members of the band. And I think like there's this thing of you can't have one without the other. Like you can't have
Yeah.
amazing singer without an amazing, unique drummer.
I
And
know,
they
I
kind
know,
of
I
like,
know. In the Struts case, the singer and the drummer are the coolest members of the band.
yeah, totally. Do you know what I mean? Without a doubt. But like, you know, it's like Robert Plant and John Bonham. Like, you know, Robert Plant brought John Bonham onto the band, the project, via like Jimmy Page, and of course you've got like Freddie and Roger, which were also, you know, they were like really kind of close mates, and you know, probably the coolest members of the band again. And you know, the Foo Fighters as well. It was the same thing. Like you had Taylor, who was just like this absolute enormous, huge energy, and Dave Grohl, you know, for what it's worth, is one of the biggest modern day rock gods of his generation, and more so. And we just sort of like really loved each other, and he was, you know, he was completely instrumental for me, like making big moves and big steps in my career, like moving out to LA was because of him, really. And I ended up renting a room from one of his good mates, Brent Woods, who was at this Thanksgiving at Taylor's house that I was also at, which was just crazy, you know. And he was super supportive in all aspects of my career. He would always call me up and ask me if I was happy about this and that and the other. And to be honest, he also really encouraged me as well to branch out and do my own solo stuff. And we ended up, you know, I was really lucky to sort of have him drum on one of these songs that are on the solo record, which I'm really, really. And it's so amazing to sort of hear him playing in my headphones, like on a song that no one's heard of yet.
Yeah.
So that's really, really special. And I know he'd be super excited for this sort of like stage of my career. In terms of the day itself, it was just complete. It was so incredibly like powerful and emotional. There was literally not a dry eye in the house from the very start of the concert, and it was just, I guess it was the closest thing to getting to have a glimpse of a concert like Live Aid or one of those other, even like the Freddie Mercury tribute show, for instance. And yes, the after party was pretty insane. I mean, I remember talking to Paul McCartney on quite a few occasions, and Paul McCartney was kept coming around up to me and stealing my vape. And then on one of the occasions where he actually tried to steal my vape, he spilt his dirty martini all over my green olive suit, ironically, and then he began to try and suck it out of the lapels, which I just thought was.
That is an incredible image.
Yeah, can you imagine that? Fucking Sir Paul McCartney, like literally sucking my lapels, trying to get the dirty martini out. But it was such a crazy night. And I remember being sat on a sofa, and to my right were the two members of Rush, and then it was Josh Homme from Queens of the Stone Age, and then to his left was Paul McCartney. So what a sofa that was, you know?
Yeah. You've talked about that you and Taylor were going to do some sort of project together. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Like what that would have looked like? Would have been a big tour around the world, or was it just going to be a little thing in LA?
Yeah, it wasn't going to be worldwide. I think it would have been maybe a few of like the A markets around the United States,
Hmm.
but mainly kind of like LA and California. And we'd spoken about it many times, and it was actually one of our last conversations that we had on the phone where we were planning on doing an entire Queen set just from the first 3 or 4 Queen albums. So everything of Queen 1, Queen 2, Sheer Heart Attack, and then maybe just stop there because you've got some incredible music there, which kind of goes a bit overlooked, sorry. So it would have been everything from like Stone Cold Crazy, Now I'm Here, Keep Yourself Alive, you know, March of the Black Queen, just all this really kind of cool proggy stuff, which we absolutely love, like Liar, of course, you know.
Great song.
Yeah, such a good song. We actually, I'd go around his house and he'd start it, and we'd get about halfway through it just from pure improvisation with me and his band. So it was so fun.
Do you have any recordings of that?
No.
Man. Were you gonna do stuff like Ogre Battle?
Yeah, we did that. We rehearsed that quite a few times.
Now I really wish that would have happened. I would have loved to hear that.
I know, it would have been so sick, and he could get all the BVs as well because he was such a Roger fan, and
Yeah.
he would do that. Ha 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 ha. He'd like nail it. So sick.
Yeah. Since we're talking about other bands here, is there a band or an artist that we as fans necessarily wouldn't think of you liking, but you really like them? Like a guilty pleasure, I guess, even though I personally don't believe in guilty pleasures.
I guess like, yeah, I don't really have any guilt when listening to music.
Yeah, if you like it, you like it. I don't understand that word at all.
I really adore Shirley Bassey.
Mm.
I've actually got a giant picture of her like right behind me. So I think Shirley Bassey is arguably probably one of the best singers the world has ever seen, hands down. And if anyone wants to know anything about singing, they need to listen to Shirley Bassey. And if you can't come close, then, you know, get in line with the rest of us because no one can come close to her. So I guess Shirley Bassey would be one of them. And unexpected, like, I don't know, like I love Lana Del Rey. I love a lot of old French music. I love Scott Walker. I love Jacques Brel. Yeah, it's quite hard off the top of my head. But yeah, I mean, to be honest, I really don't listen to a lot of rock music these days. I'm kind of sick of rock music, if that makes any sense. I've kind of exhausted so much of it. I mean, of course, I still listen to it, but like, it doesn't inspire me as it did like 3 or 4 years ago. You know?
Yeah. This is rock, of course, but have you gotten into any of the like 80s hair metal at all?
No, I think that stuff is absolute shite. I can't stand it.
That's your opinion. It's your opinion. I mean, you're entitled to it, of course. But yeah, I've always been curious of that.
It's okay. There are moments, you know. I'm partial to a bit of Cutting Crew, Died in Your Arms, and you know, I don't mind. I mean, actually, Bryan Adams's album with One Night Love Affair and Heaven on it. That's a great album, which I believe is the early 80s.
Oh, yes, I think so. This one comes from Sandy05. Which existing song by any artist or band would Hugh have liked to write?
I tell you what, I wish I'd written two songs. I wish I'd written "Born to Run"
Oh,
by Bruce
yes.
Springsteen,
Yeah.
and I wish I'd written "Bat Out of Hell." If I
Mm.
had those, boom, I could put a pistol right in my mouth and blow myself to smithereens, and my spirit would leave my body going, "Yep, I'm done." See you in a bit. Mic drop.
Yeah, great songs, obviously. Great songs. This one from Sylvie Bordeaux. What are some of your favorite gifts fans have brought you at a meet and greet?
I had some wonderful fan buy me some Class A Azul, which is my favorite tequila, which is quite an expensive tequila. So that I'm always, for those of you listening, I'm always up for some Class A Azul, and I've had some amazing figurines and dolls made in the past, which I actually have one of them in my bathroom, which is quite funny because it sort of sits in the downstairs bathroom, and and I had a group of friends round, and we were all having a big party, and there was some magic mushrooms flying around, and someone came running out the bathroom saying, "That doll just turned its head and started looking at me." So yeah, I'd say the dolls are quite fun.
Let's bring up Esther. Let's see if Esther is still with us.
Hi. As sorry, I'm trying to think on the spot.
That's okay.
I'm a big fan of Max Saturn. I've seen them now 9 times, about to be 10 with their upcoming tour. How did you happen to find out about these guys?
That's a good question. I like that.
It is a good question. They were put on my radar by my agent, actually, and funny enough, I'd heard about them, and Julian Raymond was co-producing Pretty Vicious with us, and they were playing a show in Nashville probably about a few days before we came in, and he was like, "Oh yeah, man, they're really good. They're really good." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool. Like I've heard a lot about them." So very soon after that, we then asked them if they would be up for the tour, and then we did the show with them at the festival in Memphis, which was great. It was Greta Van Fleet, the Struts, Max Saturn, and then we just sort of really got on, and which was quite a relief because you never know sometimes when with bands, some people can be real dickheads, but they were such great guys. We knew that it was going to be a good tour.
Oh, you says I was at that festival. Awesome.
Yeah, I was also at that festival. Crazy enough, that was actually the first time I saw you guys live. I was there for Greta Van Fleet and Max Saturn. So since then, I've been a big fan of you guys as well.
Yeah, it's amazing. That one festival, we gained so many new fans. It was so cool.
Yeah. How do you pick your opening bands? Is it your agents telling you who you should bring out, or do you find bands yourself sometimes and bring them out yourselves?
Yeah, it's a mix between the both. Sometimes, I've kind of got my ear to the ground with sort of like new upcoming groups. Like, I remember when I first saw Starcrawler, I was excited about them, and we managed to do like 3 or 4 shows with them. White Reaper, for instance, that we toured with ages ago, another great band that was forwarded by our agent. It's just it just really depends. Some, of course, are a bit more well known than others, so it's sort of a mixture between the two.
There's a new band called Ace Monroe that I think would do real good with you guys.
I've heard of them. Are they from Nashville?
I think so. They just came out with an album in like November, around when Pretty Vicious came out.
Yeah, that sounds good, man. As long as it doesn't sound like 80s hair metal,
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It actually sounds a lot like Dirty Honey.
Okay.
That kind of stuff. Yeah, so I have one more question before we end this. One more question for myself. I was talking to these guys when we had one of those DJ events, and I played I queued up "Let's Make This Happen Tonight," and I was saying that every time I talk to you publicly, I always make a case for "Let's Make This Happen Tonight" to come back in the set. So, when's "Let's Make This Happen Tonight" is coming back in the set?
Oh my god! I mean, we talked about Matter of Time earlier.
Yeah.
I mean that is a stretch, but that's a bigger stretch. You know, I can't see that one making its way into the set, unfortunately.
No, I know. I just, you know, I love that song, so I would.
Look, you shot your shoot. You know, you shoot your shot. You know.
I have. Okay, so but thank you, Luke, for doing this. This was so much fun.